P, the modern retelling. In Charing Cross, where commuters converge and clatter, Prince Conrad stood, his hopes beginning to shatter. The sky wept gray, a pathetic fallacy so bleak, as he sought a princess, though his spirit felt weak. His quest for a bride was in dire peril, it seemed, far from the exemplary love of which he had dreamed. Amidst the cacophony of the bustling station, he felt the weight of his royal obligation. King Leo and Queen Lily, his parents so grand, desired a perfect match for the heir of the land. The girl must be distinguished, an exemplary prize. Lily insisted with fire in her eyes. To maintain our standards, she must be elite, not some juvenile stranger we meet on the street. Leo nodded, his concern for the throne a variable that only a king could have known. Then came Princess Ruby, a vision in red, with a shimmering crown on her blonde tufted head. Her loquacious chatter was a cacophonous sound as she paraded her beauty to all those around. She was notorious for vanity, her ego quite vast, a lackluster meeting that was never destined to last. "I'm the ultimate choice," she proclaimed with a smirk, while Conrad suspected this match wouldn't work. Her pride was abysmal, her nature quite vain. She treated the prince with a look of disdain. "To mar my perfection is out of the question," she cried at his very first modest suggestion. Her beauty was inconsistent with the soul deep within, and to prolong this courtship would surely be sin. To say the least, she was infantile and petty, more focused on glitter and royal confetti. Ruby's dismissal was a bitter pill to swallow, leaving the prince's heart feeling empty and hollow. "Your standards are substandard," Ruby spat with ire, adding plenty of fuel to the emotional fire. King Leo sighed at the outrageous scene as Ruby stormed out, acting quite like a queen. "Think twice," Leo whispered, "before you decide, for a vain heart is never a place love can hide." Next, near the abbey, where ancient stones sigh, he met Princess Fern with a glint in her eye. Her hair was aflame, her gown a deep green, the most erratic royal that Conrad had seen. She lounged on a bench, her posture appalling, while the duties of state were persistently calling. Her competence was non-existent, her energy low, as she watched the Thames River listlessly flow. She was reluctant to move, her manners atrocious, her habits of laziness truly ferocious. Wearing purple sunglasses to block out the light, she was an eyesore, a horrendous sight. "Don't exacerbate my boredom," she yawned with a sneer, while her monotonous voice grated hard on his ear. Consequently, her presence would alienate friends, and his patience was reaching its horrendous ends. "This is tedious," Fern muttered, refusing to rise, as the prince saw the lack of the spark in her eyes. Queen Lily observed from a distance, dismayed, as the princess's lackluster nature was fully displayed. "She's a fish out of water," the queen did declare, with no sense of duty and no grace to spare. Fern simply napped, quite unconcerned by the stake, while the prince's poor heart continued to ache. Then came Princess Sky, with a bob of dark brown, wearing blue dungarees and, notably, no crown. She stood by the Thames, where the muddy waves churned, but the respect of the prince she had certainly not earned. Her scent was a dire and appalling perfume, like a monotonous fog that filled up the room. She was mean and infuriated by the simplest of things, mocking the prince and the lineage of kings. To add insult to injury, she was smelly and rude, leaving the prince in a crestfallen mood. Their meeting would deteriorate and go quickly pear-shaped, as from her abysmal insults he finally escaped. "Your palace is dismal," she shouted with glee, "and you're just as boring can be." Her hostility was severe, her insults were blunt, a truly horrendous and vocal affront. "Back to square one," Conrad cried in despair. "The vacancy's open, but no one is there." King Leo stepped forward. "Don't prematurely resign, for the light at the end of the tunnel will shine." But Conrad was livid, his hopes on the wane, as he stared through the glass at the relentless rain. It felt like his marriage was on borrowed time, a tragic conclusion to his questing in rhyme. The clouds did collaborate, A storm started to brew as lightning inadvertently sliced the sky through. Boom went the thunder, a cacophonous roar, as the prince paced the length of the cold palace floor. It was the calm before the storm, or so it appeared, bringing the very thing that the young prince had feared. But then came a knock, a persistent sound that echoed through hallways where silence was found. Then he saw Saffron, her brunette hair in a bun, her yellow dress shining like a midsummer sun. She knocked on the door, doused in rain and in gloom, seeking some shelter from the impending doom. She looked inconsolable, soaked to the bone, yet her exemplary grace was remarkably shown. Albeit she was drenched, her smile was a light, a beautiful omen in the middle of night. Queen Lily, quite cautious, greeted her at the door as Saffron's wet shoes squeaked across the stone floor. "A princess?" the queen asked with a skeptical glance. "Let's see if this lady deserves a fair chance." The girl's reminiscent smile was a beacon of grace, despite the horrendous rain on her face. Lily was reticent, her judgment reserved, for the prince's future must be carefully preserved. At dinner, the prince was completely elated. As for such a companion, he'd longingly waited. Saffron was competent, witty, and kind, the most exquisite partner that Conrad could find. But Lily was plotting, her plan was in motion, to test the girl's claim with a royal devotion. "We must demonstrate truth," Lily said to the king, "to see if she's really the genuine thing." The queen placed a pea, small and green, on the bed. "This test is essential," she quietly said. She piled 20 mattresses high to the roof to find of her nobility some exemplary proof. She sabotaged sleep with that one tiny sphere to make Saffron's princesshood perfectly clear. To mar such a slumber seemed a cruel thing to do, but the queen had to know if the lady was true. King Leo assisted, though he felt it was mean, to build such a mountain for the guest of the queen. They stacked them up high, an unstable heap, enough to prevent even a giant from sleep. "Is this sufficient?" Leo asked with a sigh, looking up at the tower that reached for the sky. Lily was insistent, her mind was quite set. "This is the most rigorous challenge she's met." Saffron climbed up to the penultimate height, where the air was quite thin in the middle of night. But sleep would elude her. The mattress felt hard, as if by some jagged old stone it was marred. She tossed and she turned, for the pea was a sting, an incessant and truly uncomfortable thing. The night was a variable of tossing and pain, as she listened to the rhythmic beat of the rain. At breakfast, poor Saffron looked crestfallen and tired, not at all the ecstatic bride Conrad desired. "The night was abysmal," she cried to the queen. "I've bruises the like of which shouldn't be seen. I slept on a mountain of boulders and glass. The hours of darkness refused to pass." Queen Lily was exhilarated, her heart full of glee, for no one but a princess could feel such a pea. Conrad was ecstatic, his heart was elate, as he realized he'd finally found his true mate. They wed in the Abbey, a distinguished old place, with smiles of pure joy on each royal face. No longer inconsolable, they danced through the night, a future so golden and exemplary bright. Their love was no variable, steady and true, as they started their lives in a London anew.